And I am live. Hello, everybody. My name is Danny Segura, and welcome to my weekly live Q&A, where I will be talking about everything in the combat sports world, as well as many other things. Can somebody please let me know what's up and let me know if my audio and if everything is looking good in the chat? Somebody. Big Ol says hello, sir. So I assume you can hear me. Yes, we're off to a good start. All right. Well, yes, if you're new to this, we've been doing things a little bit differently over here. Before, I was basically just doing previews and recaps on events. And then at the end, I was taking questions. And I was realizing most of the questions that I was taking and I was answering were really not related to whatever fight card I was talking about. So we're going to switch things up from now on. On Sundays, I'm going to be doing a weekly live Q&A. It'll be either at the 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. slot. Depends how hungover I am from either fight night or actual consuming alcoholic beverages. So we'll see. But I'll let everybody know the day before, like, hey, I'm going to be going live, tomorrow, Sunday, at either 1 or 2 p.m. So for now, we'll keep them at 1 p.m. But if there's any scheduling issues, I think 2 p.m. is also a nice slot that will give me some time to do a little bit of more preparing, I guess, for this. Also, one more note. I will be giving priority to the Twitter question. So again, when I put that out there, you guys have the opportunity to thread questions below on whatever tweet is it that I make about this live chat. I'll answer those first. It's just nice to get a little bit of some questions queued up. And then I'll be going to the live chat and answering whatever you guys throw on there. So yeah, that's the way it's gonna work. So welcome and thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching this live, if you're not, thanks for watching post as well. Also, quick thing. Thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to get notifications whenever I go live. So anyways, with that out of the way, a lot to talk about this week. Let's see. Valentina Shevchenko was booked for another title fight against Kaylin Shkegin. On that same card, Dominick Reyes will be challenging Jon Jones for the light heavyweight strap. Ben Askren retired. We just had Wilder versus Ortiz 2 last night. Bellator London as well last night, with MVP picking up another knockout win, which I have something to say about that because I caught some heat on Twitter for some of the comments I made, which now kind of looking back, I can see where people are coming from, but I kind of wanted to clarify some things. But anyways, what else happened? Yeah, those are basically the bigger news, but I'm sure I'm missing stuff right now. Also, we can talk about UFC DC that's coming up. So again, although not a lot of MMA went down this weekend, there's still a lot to talk about here. So with that out of the way, let's get to some Twitter questions. All right. So the first one comes by Brandon Music. With his improved strategy as evidence against Ortiz, will Wilder and the Bomb Squad be able to defuse Fury in the rematch, or will the strategy blow up in their face or blow up in his face? Yeah, that is an interesting question for those that didn't watch Wilder versus Ortiz last night. A crazy fight. It only went 7 rounds, or almost 7 rounds. It ended with about I think 9 seconds left on the 7th round. Basically, it was just a quick recap. It was basically Ortiz, for the most part, walking down Wilder, outboxing him, landing the better shots. I had that fight scored. It could have been 6-0, but I had it 5-1 Ortiz. I thought that Wilder did enough to win the 6th round, but again, it was very close. And then the 7th, I was leaning towards Wilder, but that didn't come to an end, obviously, or it did come to an end, but not fully, because Wilder connected a sniper of a right hand and just sat down Ortiz, and he couldn't get up from that, or he tried, but he looked to be out of it for sure. But yes, it seems after the matchup, Wilder said that in February date, that's when they'll be looking to do the rematch with Fury. The rematch with Fury went to the distance. It was a draw. It was a fight where it was clearly seen that Fury was the better boxer, but I mean, it was undeniable that Wilder had the more power, and then that was really the battle of the whole fight. I actually in a rematch, I would actually favor Wilder by a decent amount. I think for starters, Wilder's so new at the game that every time you fight him in the future, he's just going to be better. Whereas Tyson Fury, I mean, I'm sure there's improvement in his game, and he's working always on tightening things up and stuff like that. But for the most part, he's a finished product. He is who he is at this point in time. So I do believe he'll be facing a better Wilder when they do a rematch. Hopefully that does go down in February. And yeah, it's crazy because I was watching that fight with Ortiz, and the whole time I'm like, dude, Ortiz might have this in the bag. Like, obviously, the first rounds in boxing are always, I'm not saying kind of stalling rounds, but for the most part, really the real action really goes deep into the fight. But man, Ortiz just looked to be like so much better. I just thought like, Fury needs to start, throwing some leather and bringing up his power if he wants to possibly, get a win, because he's definitely down on the scorecards. But it just shows that Wilder just needs, and he said it in the post fight, and he's always said this. He's like, I only need to be perfect for 2 seconds. These guys need to be perfect for 12 rounds. So yeah, it's ridiculous. I think Wilder will face anyone, and he will always have more than a puncher's chance. He'll have a good chunk of a chance in any fight he's in, just because of that amazing power. But I would favor Wilder in a rematch, to answer your question, Brandon Music. All right, Devon Le5 Woods, or Devon L Woods on Twitter, asks, most exciting matchups UFC could make today by rank. Debate me. Here's this guy's list. Some of them are good, but some of them are questionable, which I will debate you in. So number 1, he has Khabib versus Ferguson. I think we can all agree there that, yeah, that is the most exciting bout the UFC can book today. Maybe not the biggest pay-per-view, but certainly the most exciting one. And I think fans have been claiming for that fight for years. That fight by far is the best possible booking you can make. Number 2, he has Khabib versus McGregor. I couldn't disagree anymore. I wouldn't even consider that in my list. I have no interest in watching Khabib versus McGregor again. Besides just the buildup and the spectacle of it, I have no interest in watching that bout. 3 is Masvidal versus Ferguson. That's a good one. I really like that one. Not a whole lot of, it doesn't make sense as far as, obviously, because one's at 170, one's at 155. One has implications to the title at 170, the other at 155. So it doesn't seem their careers or their paths are nowhere near each other, and they look like they're not going to cross anytime soon. But just from a stylistic standpoint, yes, I'm so down for that fight. That fight would be very exciting. However, I would not put it in my number 3, because if you're talking about exciting, you have to check off all the boxes, right? You got to check up, 1, it being an interesting matchup that will get you to want to watch the fight, right? And 2, I think storylines and buildup is important as well. That's where that one kind of lacks. But from an action standpoint, yeah, fantastic matchup. I would definitely include that in my list, but I don't know about number 3. Masvidal versus McGregor. That one's a little bit different than the Ferguson matchup, because it does make more sense storylines. I mean, they've gone back and forth a little bit. We know that because of Diaz, the two are linked as well. Dana White has even linked them when people have suggested a possible fight, and him saying, McGregor, I think he's too big for McGregor, and then McGregor out there saying, no, he's not. So there is a little something there, but to be honest, I think Masvidal will ragdoll McGregor. There's just a huge size difference there. I mean, Nate looked bigger than Conor by a significant amount, and Masvidal looked way bigger than Nate by a significant amount. So I do agree with Dana in that one. I think Masvidal is just way too big for McGregor. By the way, if you're listening to any of the outside noise, I don't know how this mic is pretty good at canceling outside noise, but my neighborhood does get a little crazy out here in Brooklyn. I live in a busy avenue, so just disclaimer, that's just gonna be part of it. Think of it as personality to this live Q&A. Yeah, so then we go at number 5. Then we got Masvidal versus Nick Diaz. I was more excited about that fight when it was originally proposed. Now, not so much. But then below that, things start getting interesting. Number 6, Adesanya versus Jones. 7, Jones versus Ngannou. 8, Adesanya versus Costa. So out of those, these would be my picks. I think number 1, Khabib Ferguson, no doubt. Then I would go Jones Ngannou as number 2. Number 3, I would go Adesanya Jones, and I'd probably be more excited for that one a year or two down the line. 4, I would go Adesanya Costa. I think that's a fight that makes sense stylistically. I'm all for it. And then 5, then I'll start getting into those Masvidal matchups. So I'd be probably like Masvidal Ferguson, then Masvidal McGregor, and I think lastly I would do Masvidal and Nick Diaz, to be honest. Between the McGregor and Nick Diaz, they're right there. But yeah, that would be my list, Devon. So thanks for submitting that one. Those are fun. All right, so let's stay on the Devon track. He asked another question. Says, "What's your opinion on Masvidal versus Ferguson? Because of other players affecting both parentheses McGregor, Habib, Diaz, etc. This matchup is often ignored. Stylistically, it'd be ultra promising, and both have competed at 155 and 170, similar sizes. Timing may prevent it, but compelling af." Yeah, I mean, kind of what I was just telling you. From a stylistic standpoint, that is a fantastic matchup. Ferguson is a huge lightweight. Size-wise, they'll look about the same. Skill-wise, they have very interesting skill sets, both with high volume. Yeah, it would be a fantastic matchup. But as you said, Devon, like they are tied to so many other storylines that fight does not make sense. Something I am excited for is that when you talk about McGregor and Nate Diaz and these guys that are in the money weight division, these bigger name guys, for the most part, you look at them and you kind of get a sense that they're not going to be around for that much longer. I mean, I'm not confident that McGregor will be fighting 4 years from now, 3 years from now. I can't say the same thing about Nate Diaz. Whereas Masvidal, and again, I haven't spoken to him recently. Last time I talked to him was at UFC 244 when he picked up the BMF belt. But he said it there at that press conference. He's like, I'm around for 3 or 4 more years. Like he's gonna have a good chunk of his career as far as like being this superstar. He's not going to be on the shelf. He's going to be active. He's finally got the name and the recognition to make the big money. So he's going to put that to a use. And not only that, but if you look at him from a skill standpoint, like he kind of plays both worlds. Like he's kind of in the money weight division and he's this big name that can headline pay-per-views without a title. But he's also good enough to be considered a contender and just play in the regular realm of the UFC. So he's a world-class fighter. So he could do a little bit of both. He can fight the best and fight for the belt, or he can have these like fun matchups. So I think the next 2 or 3 years of his career are going to be very fun. Once he's all healed up and stuff, that man's going to have a lot of options, a lot of interesting options. But yes, that fight's good. Maybe down the line. I mean, imagine if Ferguson beats Khabib and Masvidal manages to capture the welterweight title, then a champ versus champ fight if that aligns. But again, that's just looking so far ahead. For now, that I don't think that fight is anywhere close. All right, 2 more questions on Twitter, and then I'll flip over to the live chat. Jay Zuz asks, when you can stop calling MVP a prospect and just call him what he is. Also, Daly was absolutely right on the desk to call Bellator / Coker to call out. So you missed the word here. Oh, good, I got you. To right on the desk to call out Bellator / Coker for the matchmaking. It would be a main to see more fighters be honest, like Paul was yesterday. Also, who's MMA's Wilder? So, all right. So a lot to unpack here. Let me first of all address what I posted on Twitter and kind of give you a rundown of what happened last night at Bellator London, in case you didn't watch and you missed it. Good old coffee. So basically, MVP was originally scheduled to face Derek Anderson, who's legit, who's fought in Bellator already for a bit. I believe he's beaten Patricky Pitbull twice. Also has a win over Saad Awad. Fought some other tough dudes in Bellator. Again, not the best Bellator fighter, but a proven guy in Bellator. He's been around for some time, and he's picked up mostly wins. And he's a good fighter. He had to pull out due to injury, so then MVP had to face this other gentleman named Gianni Meliggio, some Italian dude. He was 3-4 at the time. I believe he might have been on a 4-fight losing streak. No, he was 1-3 in his last four. So, no, sorry, he was 2-2 in his last four. So again, not the greatest record. Someone with a positive record. Anyways, MVP goes in there, does his thing, knocks him out in the first round. And then I tweeted, I will read it exactly just so I'm not making shit up. I tweeted the following. Unreal. Michael Page just knocked out Gianni Melillo with a nasty right hand. I know Melillo is not the toughest matchup, but pulling those kind of finishes constantly is not an easy thing to do. MVP is a wild man. And then I got a bunch of replies, people saying, come on, Danny, you're better than this. You know, what are you talking about? This and that. So yeah, I get where you guys are coming from. I mean, any high level fighter would probably do the same to Gianni. And, you know, I'm not trying to throw shade to him, but that's just a fact. So yes, in that sense, it wasn't impressive, but all I wanted to get across was this. MVP has done that back to back, and not only that, the way he does it, his styles is getting first round knockouts is hard. Even if you're fighting someone that's shitty, dude, he fought somebody that had 17 professional fights. 13 of those were wins, 4 of them were losses. Like, the guy can't be terrible. Like, the guy is not like somebody like the CM Punk deal where they're bringing someone in that's 0-0, or somebody that works in media and is a part-time fighter. Like, this guy has clearly been doing MMA for a bit. Again, it's not the hardest thing in the world, but for him to be doing that all the time, it's impressive. And it's you know, it proves that, because a lot of people were saying MVP sucks, MVP sucks. He might not be as good as Bellator or the highlight reel makes him seem to be, but nonetheless, he is a good fighter. Is he a top 5 welterweight? Probably not. I think Douglas Lima proved that, but again, he's so untested. We haven't seen him face a good amount of good fighters to kind of gauge where he's at, because again, anybody can lose to Lima like that as well too. Is he a top 10 welterweight? Probably not. Is he a top 15? I think that's when maybe things get a little interesting. Maybe. I mean, maybe right outside of it. Like, he's definitely a skilled fighter. Again, not the best, but again, to be pulling off these kinds of wins and in the fashion that he does, I think it's impressive. But I agree with all of you as far as being not upset, but yeah, basically annoyed at kind of getting these type of matchups. Like, we've seen so many of them that it's kind of boring. We know what to expect at this time, even if that sounds crazy. We know we're expecting a first round knockout, yet we label it boring. But yes, it's true. Like, we want to see someone get tested, and this is clearly not it. However, to Bellator's defense and Scott Coker's, he was booked against Derek Anderson, who is a good fighter, who's legit, who is a level above, below Lima, probably a level below Daly, but nonetheless, like, a good fighter, definitely a level higher than this guy Gianni. So, you know, you can't fault Bellator for that. They did give him a tough matchup, but I do agree with you guys. I think, and I agree with him, Daly as well, which is part of your question as well. Like, I want to see him get tested. I want to see him, you know, fight other guys that are skilled. I want to have doubt going into a matchup. I don't want to expect first round knockouts. I want to go in there knowing, is this guy going to get a first round knockout, or is he going to get knocked out? Very much like the Douglas Lima matchup. That's the move, you know. And if Bellator wants to make big fights, those are big fights, because MVP is a big name. Something I'm a huge fan of, a booking that I'm a huge fan of, is Daly versus MVP2. And I said this on Twitter. I believe that's Bellator's Ngannou versus Derek Lewis. Basically, their first fight sucked, just like Ngannou Lewis. Absolutely, there's no denying that. I think both fighters would also agree that that fight was boring, uneventful, and frankly, it quite sucked. However, I just have such a hard time seeing that fight play out the same way it did. Like, it's just tough. There's still the bad blood's still there. They never squashed anything. Daly clearly wants that fight as well. I think it's a big fight. Also, when Bellator did it, I believe it was here in the States, in Connecticut. Like, that needs to be in London as well. I feel like, again, if it's in London, I think that would do a lot to it. And I think the second one would actually be a very big fight and feel like a big fight, just like the first one did. But again, make it in London, build it up. And yeah, I do think this is very much like the case of Ngannou Lewis, a fight that the first totally sucked, but I strongly believe the second one would go much differently, and I'm actually looking forward to a second bout. So yeah, that's my take on that. But yeah, and it's time for MVP to stop fighting these lower level fighters. And then lastly, to answer fully answer Jace's questions, who's MMA's Wilder? Probably Ngannou. I don't know, but that's a tough one. He's such a unique fighter, but probably him. All right, moving on. We are 20 minutes in, and I want to answer as many questions as possible. Bari here. See, this is why you gotta reply on Twitter. Hi, Danny. Great show. Watching from London. Thank you, Bari. Do you believe Nick Diaz has a better chance of defeating Jorge Masvidal than his brother Nate? If so, what makes Nick more dangerous opponent compared to Nate? Thanks, Bari. Well, thank you for submitting that very good question. That is a good question. I think there's a lot of unknowns that we currently don't know, right? They're unknown. So it's hard for me to answer that question in that sense. Here are some things I think Nick Diaz has going for him. Number one is size. Diaz last time he fought was at 185, and he did look small. But for 170, he was always not a big dude, but like he just has a big frame. Not a strong guy, but he definitely wasn't a small welterweight. He's definitely bigger than Nate Diaz, and I think that's a big one. If you saw that, Masvidal is a great athlete and training at ATT. That guy's in tip-top shape and as strong as he can be. Like, it was clear to me that there was a big athletic gap between the two. I think there will still be an athletic gap between Masvidal and Nick, but I think it'd be much closer than Nate and Masvidal. Just simply out of the size, simply out of the fact that Nick has way more experience, obviously, than his brother fighting at 170. He knows that weight class a lot more. He's built for that weight class a lot better. And yeah, so as far as that, I think Nick has that going for him. The only problem is that Nick is not an active fighter, and Nate Diaz kind of isn't really, but still, he fought in August against Anthony Pettis. So again, he had to train for that. So there was some sort of build up to the Masvidal fight as far as his athletics go. I think the only negative thing, but again, this can be healed with time. He was coming off such a bad cut that was very fresh. Nick hasn't fought in a while. I suspect he probably doesn't have as fresh of a scar tissue, or maybe I'm wrong. You never know. But in that sense, I would label Nick as a more dangerous opponent. But again, Nick hasn't fought in such a long time that it's really hard to tell like where he's at in his career. I'd love to see him do some jiu-jitsu competitions to, put some stuff out there, him hitting pads or something to kind of have a gauge. But for now, I would label Nate as a more dangerous fighter. I feel more confident in Nate winning a fight than Nick Diaz. Obviously, depending on the matchup, but still, that's how I feel. So to answer your question, I consider Nate more dangerous at this point in time. The active fighter. All right, last question on Twitter, and then I'll hop over to the chat and see what you people have thrown on there. How do you evaluate Reyes' chances against Jones? Will Jones stand and trade or strike at a distance to stay out of Reyes' boxing range? I mean, Jon Jones, if something he's very good at, has always been at using his range, but we've also seen him kind of take the fight to where his opponents are better, just to kind of prove a point, right? Like wrestling with Chael Sonnen, although I think, probably things would have been just as devastating if it would have just striked with him. Clinching with the Glover Teixeira, who's known to very strong physical guy at the time, still is good in the clinch, good at dirty boxing. Jones just said F that and did what he did, right? But in this case, in the last few years, he has changed the style a bit, where it's most more responsible, I would say. And yes, so I would assume he would keep his reach advantage. He would use that to his advantage and use it against Reyes. So I do think he'd probably stay at range with the occasional, going in to land shorter punches, right? Uppercuts, hooks, elbows. He's very good at that. But nonetheless, I think he'd use his kicks and his straight punches to keep Reyes at a distance for the majority of the fight. How do I like Reyes' chances against Jones? I mean, I don't like anyone's chances against Jones, to be honest. So it's not really a Reyes thing. It's really, for the most part, anybody at light heavyweight against Jon Jones is going to be an underdog. That's just a fact. But Reyes is unbeaten, 12-0, 6-0 in the UFC. Has put impressive wins together, has knockout power, has good striking, is a good athlete. So he does have a chance against them. And then, some believe Jones is slowing down. I'm not sure I subscribe to that 100%, but I do believe there are things that will make, there is something to it, maybe. So I still favor Jones by a lot, but Reyes definitely has a chance in this one. A powerful guy, young, athletic. Yeah, it should be a good fight. All right, so that was it for Twitter questions, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that was it. Thank you, everybody, for submitting those Twitter questions. It helps this show, this Q&A to get along quick, so I don't have to wait around and kind of wait for the chat to fill up. So with that out of the way, now I'm gonna take your questions from the live chat. All right. So, hey Danny, thanks for doing these. This is by JFC Plus in the chat. Hey Danny, thanks for doing these. Would love to get your impression on Ortiz's work in the beginning of the rounds, and if you thought his disciplined approach would lead him to a win like I did. Yeah, I kind of talked about this. I talked about the matchup, but I kind of alluded to this in the sense that Ortiz was clearly being the better boxer early on. He was much measuring his punches, being very careful, just doing enough to land the better shots, land more often, take the round as well, and also not have a crazy output where he'd be exposed to a crazy shot by Wilder. In the end, that didn't matter. But Ortiz looked good, man. He's a good boxer. He's skilled. He's got power. He's smart. He's tough. But Wilder's is Wilder, and he's got that crazy power that very few, maybe only one man in this world, Tyson Fury, can actually handle. And yeah, I mean, that's all I got to say about that. All right. Now, JC Plus, I know you got a bunch of other questions here, which I appreciate, and I will get to. But I'm first going to answer some others. If we do have more time, I'll go back to your questions just to kind of be fair to everybody in the chat. Hope that's cool. All right. Alex Howie, or Ho, I think. Do you think it's time for Bellator to start giving MVP actually hard fights, or just keep giving him lightweights or nobodies? Yeah, like I said, it's time. It's time. It absolutely is. I am sick of it. I am tired of seeing MVP fight lower level competition. It's just not as exciting as it used to be. And it was fine during his buildup, but I do believe he is 32 years old. Let me double check so I don't get people wrecking me on the comments. Yes, MVP's 32. That's not old. That's, you could very well be in the prime of your career, just about. But he is who he is at this point. There's no more grooming. There is no more giving him he's not a prospect. There's no more giving him easy fights to build him up. He's probably any more knockouts is not going to build his brand. He already built his brand. He's a huge name. Use that big name now. Now it's the time to give him these tougher matchups. And Daly, although Daly doesn't like MVP, and there is biases and a special interest there for him to say this things that he said. I still think what he said on the desk was on point. And again, I want to see that fight, as I said before. And yes, it's absolutely time for MVP to start taking on tougher matchups. Danny, segundo late again. No, I was on time. I will get to yeah, never mind. I'll get back to it. All right. Jonathan Jones asks, if Alex beats Holloway, how does he get it done? Yeah. I talked to Volkanovski at UFC 244 for a good while. That was when I was with MMA Fighting. We had our morning weigh-ins live stream, and yeah, within one of the breaks, I sat down with him and chatted for him for a good while, a bunch of things. We talked about a lot of things, but we talked about the fight, and yeah, it's no secret Volkanovski is a strong, stocky man with great wrestling skills, great grappling skills, very dominant there. So a good striker as well. But I think that's how he gets it done, with pressure, closing the distance. Obviously, he's not going to fight Max Holloway at range, being the smaller guy, and also probably the slower guy too. Not that he's slow, but Max Holloway's quick, and he connects his punches well. So yeah, I'll be expecting for him to close the distance, use dirty boxing, box at his range, clinch, look for the takedown if it's there. I would look for him to lock up with Holloway a lot. Maybe not to get the takedown. If it's there, obviously he'll take it. But again, just to be in a dominant position, just because the Holloway is hard to take down, just to be the one dictating the pace, dictating where the fight's going to be, being in the close quarters for him to get his dirty boxing flowing and take advantage of his shorter reach. So that's more or less how I see the fight going. But again, for breakdowns, I encourage you guys always to check out my good friend Luke Thomas breakdowns over at Showtime, where he does the morning combat dissected breakdown, and those are great. And I'm sure he'll have something coming up, and I'm excited for it, and I'll look forward to it. He's awesome with those type of breakdowns. Salute from 10th Planet Vegas. Salute. I'm actually going to look to start doing jiu-jitsu again soon. I've been boxing for 6 months, rehabbing my body from a hernia surgery that I had earlier in the year. And yeah, jiu-jitsu is rough on the body, so I was kind of scared to. I'm still hesitant to step on the mat, but I think in the next few weeks I will be stepping on the mat, just flowing and rolling responsibly with people that I trust. But I think that's my next step. I want to get back into jiu-jitsu. I definitely miss it. Fight Night Pick says, "Let's go Real Madrid." Another great Q&A, Danny. Half of that statement is good. Yeah, I'll never say anything positive about Real Madrid unless James is playing. And even then, I'm very conflicted. Wilder didn't plan on throwing until the 7th. Let Ortiz tire for half of the fight and then open up. Risky, though. Wilder got cracked heavy. Yeah, he did. He got hit heavy by Ortiz. And yeah, that's true. That's what the commentators were saying. That's what Sean Porter was saying. Yeah, that's the strategy. And, the element of surprise, he kind of thought that Ortiz thought that Wilder was just constantly, he got used to this certain gear. And then Wilder just brought it from 0 to 60 in no time. So I don't think Ortiz expected that kind of shot. And yeah, it's part of the strategy. All right. So, okay. Alex Ho asks again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name. Why does Conor prefer to fight Cowboy even though he's on a 2-fight skid? Justin versus Conor would be a better and harder fight. Exactly why. Because Justin is a hard fight. Cowboy's still a hard fight. He's a very skilled fighter, still an elite fighter, one of the best lightweights on the planet, still, top 10. But yeah, dude, when was the last time Conor fought in MMA? Like 2 years ago? Wait, no. When was the last time he fought? Yeah, last time he fought was against Khabib. That was a while ago. So yeah, if you want to ease your way back into fighting, which you should, because it's not an easy thing to do. So anything you can do to make it better, that'd be a wise choice. Yeah, you'd like to fight the easiest opponent. Now he's in a system, he's in a company, the UFC, that doesn't have a tune-up system. He can't fight scrubs because there's just no such thing in the UFC. They technically can do it. They've done it. They've brought in right, 0-0 fighters, 1-0 fighters, right? The whole CM Punk experiment. But that was against people that were also inexperienced. Given the fact that Conor is a former 2-time world champion, a fight like Donald Cerrone is as tune-up as you can possibly get, which is outrageous because Cerrone's legit. But yes, it's a fight that is winnable for him. If he wins, he's going to get that opportunity to get on the mic, have some momentum behind him, and then build up for a bigger fight. Again, it's still a risk because he can lose. But again, I think most people would like his chances against Cowboy than against Justin Gaethje. If some might disagree, but I think most people that know about the sport would probably agree with that statement. So yes, no, the Cowboy fight is the fight to make. Also, no offense to Justin, but Cowboy's a pretty big brand. Like his whole persona, his whole personality, he's a character. So when you pair him up against another character like Conor McGregor, that's just going to be for a better buildup. So I think it's a better fight. I disagree in saying I think this one's a better fight, not the Justin Gaethje one. But I do agree in the sense that Gaethje is the hard fight, and that's exactly why they're trying to make Conor fight Cowboy, because you do need him to win for him to maximize his selling potential, right? If Conor was in a losing streak, I guarantee you he could still sell out pay-per-views, but sell out arenas and kill pay-per-views. But if you want to optimize, if you want to maximize his selling and star potential, he's got to be on a win. And lately, with all the negative headlines that have popped up against him, the losses, he really needs a win. So yeah, the Cowboy route is the one to go. Alex also asks, what do you think about MVP versus Wonderboy if he ever went to the UFC? Yeah, that'd be a great fight. I totally watch that. It could possibly be very boring, but I mean, it could also be an interesting karate, elusive striking battle. Darian Marcus, will you be creating a MMA beat type show for MMA Junkie? We'll see. I do want to do some programming and do some work there. So I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned. Reggie Matthews, MVP would get absolutely starched by almost every top 15 UFC welterweight. Steven Thompson is currently 8, and he's what MVP wishes he could be. Big name, not much else. I disagree with that. I don't know, because we have so little information about him fighting. Really, the only 2 top level guys he's really fought is Daly, and that was a horrible fight that didn't tell us much because of the nature that Daly decided to fight in, and the Douglas Lima one, which that ended quick and got knocked out. So again, he got a win there in the Daly one and a loss against Douglas Lima. So my hunch is that he could very well be a top 15 welterweight, maybe just outside of it. But again, we have very little information to go by. But again, that's why people want, including myself, we want him to fight tougher opposition. We want to see where he's at. We want to see what's up. So, yeah. Nurlan Ramasanov. Do you think Kamaru Usman is the best fighter in the UFC roster today? No, Jon Jones is. Yeah. Jon Jones is the best fighter. Khabib is up there as well. Usman's good. I mean, he's a champion. He's definitely one of the best, but I don't think he's the best. And he just won the belt, defend the belt a few times, like someone like Jon Jones, and that's really how you prove the best. You're the best. Longevity in your weight class as far as being the champion, right? Someone like GSP. But yeah, Usman is a very skilled fighter, and he could very well be dominant in the welterweight division. I think once he gets past Colby, I think Colby's a big threat for him. And I think after that, I think he could have a good grip in that division as far as like holding the title. But first he needs to get by Colby, and I think that's a tough test. I think I favor Colby. I don't know. I'm split. We'll see as the fight gets closer. But as of now, I think Colby could beat him. The Wizard of Osborne asks, what will it take for people to be interested in women's 125? Seems like none of the contenders are draws. Will it take a super fight with Nunes or the 115 champ? Sorry. So what would it take for more people to be interested in women's 125 pound? Well, for one is a new weight class. So whenever there's a new weight class, it's hard to follow, right? The contenders are just being built and whatnot. So in that sense, it's always going to be tough to have a lot of interest right away. But over time, you develop that interest. Now, that's not entirely true. We saw what happened in the flyweight division. Eventually, that changed with Cejudo. But that division could be in a similar position as the men's, in the sense that Valentina is so damn dominant that it could turn some people off. Again, kind of like the MVP treatment. Like, we know what's going to happen. She's just going to kill whoever they put in front of her. So for starters, contenders need to put on impressive performances and impressive wins for there to cast some sort of doubt on the champion. Also, I think something that division's got going is that, unlike Demetrius Johnson, who wasn't too fond of like doing media and talking about the fight game, Valentina is. She's far more open about that, so that always helps. She just happens to be very good looking as well, so that doesn't hurt either. And in a sport that's mainly watched by men. And yeah, I think we'll see what happens with Nunes. I think that'd be interesting. I know she's lost twice to her, but most people think in some of those either fight, she won. Valentina won. We saw the 115 champion go up, Joanna and Jacek. That felt like a big fight because Joanna had a big name. So we'll see. We'll see if what happens in the future. But I do think more interest is going to develop, whether it's with the Nunes side, whether it's with the 115 side, or whether someone along at 125 will come up and actually, create some noise and cast some doubt on the champion, where, people want to see the fight because, people don't know what's going to happen. So, yeah. All right. Darian Marcus asks, this is on the live chat, who do you believe will be the breakout star of 2020? I think Hakeem Dawodu could do impressive stuff in 2020. Young guy, charismatic, skilled, dangerous, looking to stay active. So yeah, possibly him. As one of the, I don't know if he's going to be the breaking star, but one of them for sure that's going to have a good year, or that I suspect will have a good year. Man, it's kind of hard to tell. I'm trying to think of like young prospects coming up. I think Yair Rodriguez is in a position right now where the next fights ahead of him are going to be big. And if he is healthy and if he stays active and if he keeps doing what he's doing, I think he could very well be in a much bigger position than he is now at the end of 2020. So that could be one. But he's already a pretty known commodity, a pretty known name. So it's not like it'll be breakout. Man, it's hard to pinpoint these. But it'll be someone that will come out of nowhere, kind of like the Israel Adesanya, someone that will join the promotion and look to stay active and take on short notice opportunities and make the most out of those and get on the mic. So yeah, we'll see. But as of now, I don't have like a clear name. I'm trying to think. Oh, I mean, he kind of is already, but Jairzinho Rosenstruck, who's fighting at DC pretty soon. I believe it's next weekend. Let me make sure. That is December 7th. No, that is not next weekend. The weekend after that. Well, he's made knocked out or lost here recently. Immediately got a fight with short notice fight with Alistair Overeem. If he beats Alistair Overeem, and if he beats him in the way he's been beating his other opposition, that dude could very well be fighting for the title in late 2020. I mean, it's not crazy. I mean, after Overeem, maybe 1-2 more wins at most. That could be someone that could have a really good 2020 year. But again, he's already having a good 2019 year. So I don't know if you'd consider him a breakout star. Tough question, Darren. So moving on. Terrence Levirette. Again, sorry if I'm killing your names here. Can you please tell us what equipment you use for your live chat, please? Thanks and congratulations. Well, thank you. Let's see. Right now, what you guys are looking at me at with this webcam. I got a Logitech webcam, which is HD, shoots 1080p. Pretty good. It wasn't all that expensive. The ones on the MacBook suck. It's pretty much a very simple setup. I got this man, I don't even know some of the stuff that I bought. I don't even know the name. This is a Scarlett microphone, very good. From the stuff that and it's mounted onto my desk, so I can move this around wherever I want. And what else? Then I got this box thing. What would this be called? I don't know, but the brand name is called Focus Right, and that's where I plug in my microphone to and control the levels of this mic, and then plug this into the computer. And then I got a few other things here that I could maybe down the line make a video of kind of my setup. It's very simple. When I was looking to reactivate my YouTube channel, I talked to Luke because he's a good friend of mine, and also he kills it in YouTube. I think he's one of the best people right now in MMA that's got a good grip of the YouTube game. And something he told me, he's like, whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you want to do, and maybe you don't want to do MMA stuff, you want to do some other stuff, but you want to do content nonetheless in YouTube. Whatever it is that you do, just make sure that it's an easy setup so that it's not a struggle to set up and actually make stuff. Like, even if it's not as good quality, you might want something not as good quality as something else, as long as it's an easier setup. It's something you can just boom put together and just start doing stuff. If you have something where you have to build something and put together stuff, and it becomes like a whole ordeal just to shoot one video, then it's easy. I just move this mic out of the way and it's constantly on my desk. I have to plug in a few cables, but other than that, I got a pretty decent setup. Again, it's not the best, but I got good audio. The video's HD, and I think those are the biggest things. Down the line, if this gets bigger and if I'm able to make some money off it, then I'll invest in it. But for now, this is what I got, and I'm happy with it. Hopefully, you guys are too, as far as the quality. But yeah, that's kind of my setup. Again, I can go deeper into it in the future. But again, this is I don't even know some of the stuff that I bought. I mean, I'll have to go to my Amazon order history and really get you names and specs and all that. But yeah, basically a mount, microphone, HD webcam, and a box so my microphone can go onto my computer and start doing audio. Basically it. Frankie Cal asks, why are wrestlers so much more dominant in being champions in the UFC than any other style? Where we lied to by BJJ marketing. Wrestling is a sport and seems to beat most martial arts. Wrestling tied with other things, yeah, but just wrestling itself doesn't. I mean, I speaking personally from personal experience, I wrestled in high school, and one of my wrestling buddies, Juan Zambrano, rest in peace, no longer with us. He did jiu-jitsu during the off seasons, and he was always telling me, yo, come by the academy, So I'm like, when wrestling was over for me, and I wasn't good enough to go wrestle in college, then I was like, yeah, I'll do jiu-jitsu. Plus, I was a big MMA fan, so it made sense, and it was something that I was interested in. In fact, I originally just started doing wrestling is because I couldn't afford, because as a high school kid, I didn't have money, and my parents didn't have money either. I couldn't afford jiu-jitsu classes. Like, we were broke. So yeah, jiu-jitsu is expensive. Like, you can go to an academy, especially here in New York, but in Florida too. Like when I was living down there, like it could be like 150 and plus to pay monthly. For some people that's a car payment almost. A lease basically. So for a cheap lease it would be, but that's a big chunk of money. So anyways, that's essentially how I joined wrestling. Anyways, and then when I made the transition over to jiu-jitsu, I was just getting wrecked because there's so many do's and don'ts, that are conflicted and that don't work in jiu-jitsu. But once I was able to learn just a little bit, I remember just like 3 months in, and I knew some basics. I was able to beat some blue belts, and that was, I think, mainly because wrestling is such a hard athletic sport that you're constantly going 100% all the time, and jiu-jitsu guys take a lot of breaks during their grappling, that they're not used to that type of pressure. They're not used to the timing, all that. But also, yeah, just wrestling is a dominant form, and if you're able to in MMA add punches to it, which will help you defend submissions, if there's no gi involved, right? Because in jiu-jitsu, I can put you in a million positions that will benefit me, but the moment you turn on strikes, I'm screwed. You can just elbow me and knock me out. So yeah, I mean, wrestling is very dominant, but wrestling paired with other things, wrestling paired with ground and pound, wrestling paired with submission defense, with jiu-jitsu awareness, just wrestling itself. If you put a BJJ guy versus a wrestling guy, both, fresh off the mat in wrestling and fresh off the dojo in jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu guy will win most of the time. Yeah. But again, it's wrestling paired with other things that goes a long way. All right. It's pronounced how silent. All right. Silent D. Thank you, Alex. How for letting me know how to pronounce your name. Let's see. Geoff Neal versus Mike Perry. Immigrant mentality. Steopic asks or says, yeah, Geoff Neal's a bad dude. Mike Perry's a bad dude as well. I'm done. Jonathan Jones, can we talk about Bisping winning the belt with one real eye? Effing crazy and very Bisping like. His commentary is really good. Yeah, he's one of the better. He's one of him and Cormier have been probably the best fighters that have, in my opinion, transitioned the best from just fighting career to commentary. Bisping's a natural on camera, super charismatic, has a nice British accent, and adds a lot of value to commentary. He knows a lot. He's clearly a very experienced dude, and he's funny too. He's got a nice sense of humor too. I enjoy his commentary. And yes, it's crazy he won the belt with one real eye. That dude is a wild man. He's crazy. All right, as I'm going through this chat, I'm gonna have to go back and answer some other questions that were repeats from other people, but I wanted to answer everybody's questions. So once that's done, I will go back to repeats. Amurat asks, who will win in a fight? Boris Johnson versus Jeremy Corbyn. I don't know. I'm not even very well. Let me pull these up. I don't know. That is probably they're both old. I think I would favor Boris Johnson. He's got a terrible cut, but he seems a little younger. How old is he? 55. How old is this other dude, Jeremy? He's 55. Jeremy is 70. Oh yeah, for sure, Boris. I mean, because of their hair, I think they kind of look the same age. Boris does looks a little younger, but he also looks bigger, like the bigger man, just looking from his neck. Yeah, I would say Boris Johnson beats Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, if they were to fight, of course. What's next for Gilbert Melendez? I would like to see him over at Bellator, maybe fourth fight with Josh Thompson. Josh Thompson did float the idea, I think, talking to Mike Bong over at MMA Junkie. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, it was with him. I like that. I mean, I'm all for 5 fights. Let's do 2 more. And Gilbert Melendez, he's good. He hasn't been doing too hot, but I don't think he's to a point where people are like, oh, please stop fighting. Like, again, I've been a fan of the Legends division. I've said this time after time in the sense of I'm all for watching older guys continue fighting, just as long as you're not fighting the top young guys. Like, look, if you want to fight other old guys and you're still fairly healthy and you're doing it as responsible as you can be, because we all know fighting is just simply not good for your health, period, no matter the context. Yeah, I'm all for it. Gilbert Melendez and Bellator, I think that would be a good fit. Plus, he's worked with Scott Coker before in Strikeforce. I think that make complete sense. Just tune in, Danny. Is that the November mustache, or you rocking that Narcos look for real? Mustache is looking thick with like 3 C's right now. I'm gonna trim it today and cut some of this scrub. But yes, I do like to bring it around this time of the year to support November and all the men with prostate cancer and there's other health issues as well, mental health issues and whatnot. It's a good thing to bring out. You know, people think it's just about the mustache, but it's much more than that. But I did started bringing it out since October because it takes me a bit for it to kind of kick into full force, the stash. So what I do, and this is the tip for all men looking to grow mustache without looking shitty for a bit, if you just try to straight up grow a mustache, there's going to be a good stage, which is probably like 2 weeks to, it depends obviously on the person, but about like a week and a half to like about 2.5 weeks. That's when it looks bad because it's neither here or there. It's not a mustache, but it's not just a shadow. So it's like some nasty hair thing. I don't know. So just, but if you pair it with the bottom, if you're able to grow the goatee, it looks fine the entire time. If you because it's just like a small goatee. So just grow the goatee until the mustache can hang on its own, and then that's when you kill this. And then you're left with a mustache, with a decent mustache, and then from then on, the mustache will get better. But to avoid that weird stage, grow the entire goatee. That's my advice for all you looking to grow a mustache. And yes, I'm planning on keeping this for a bit. I'm always on and off about facial hair. Like it gets annoying, it gets itchy, and eating food, you know, you got to be a lot more clean and well kept and whatnot. Um, but yeah, man. I like to bring it every now and then, especially around November. So I'll probably rock this for a couple more months or maybe a few more weeks. I have no idea. I'll just shave it whenever I feel like shaving it. Danny boy, what do you make of Spurs appointing Mourinho as a manager? Rip, rest in peace, Pochettino. As an Arsenal fan, there's no manager I love to hate more than him, which makes him a perfect fit at Spurs. Hopefully, they sink. Well, I don't think he'll do a lot worse than Pochettino. He was like what 25 points in 24 games or something like that. It was pretty ridiculous, like a relegation for him, really. Um, I'm all for the chaos. I'm a fan of Mourinho. I'm an Atletico Madrid fan, so I respect a good defensive team. Mourinho, I know he gets a lot of criticism about his tactics being a little bit too defensive, but I respect them, and I do think he's a brilliant manager. And I'm not a huge fan of the ego, but like I think it's fun and I think it's something interesting. So I was actually just watching the press conference, and that dude's hilarious. So I'm all in for the chaos. Yeah. Yeah, and look, he was a great commentator when he was doing his whole gig and he was without a team. But now that he's with the Spurs, he's got a great team on his hands, and I want to see what he does. And again, I'm all in for the chaos. I've been following that storyline, and I will continue to follow that. All right, so seems this is about it. I like to go an hour, so I got 3 more minutes. There was a question that I wanted to tackle. That I thought was a very good one. So I will do that right now. And then I'll answer whatever I have left. Somebody asked, how bad is my myotopia? So I'm very new to glasses. I've actually just got these recently. It's mostly because I am, and by the way, this is not the question that I really wanted to address, but just addressing it now. Back to War 100 asks, so basically, since I work in front of the computer all that much, like my job, I'm just constantly like 8-9 hours, and then give it what I use for my phone recreationally. Like I'm just constantly staring at a screen, playing video games, computer, whatever. And I've noticed over the last year, my vision has gotten kind of bad. It's not really bad. It's fairly close to 20/20. I believe like my eyes are like, it's like plus like 2.75 or something like that. Like I don't really know my prescription. Again, I'm very new to this, but I started noticing that like a medium range, faces would look kind of blurry, and I would have a hard time reading stuff. And then with these glasses, I see like so much clearer. Like when I got them, I was like, holy shit. Like I was for like a good 10 minutes just like walking around, just staring at things, just because like they look so much different. Again, it's not a huge deal. Like I can see fine, and I can read fine. I can look at a long distance fine, but this does make it just a little more clear. And they have like this anti-reflection technology. So when I am on the computer, I try to wear them to kind of rest my eyes. I do feel like my eyes are a little more at ease now. All right, so yeah, that's the whole deal with my glasses. All right, we got 1 minute. Somebody asked here. It was JFC Plus. Yeah, JFC Plus asked earlier in the chat. Also, would love to. Also, would love a take on Colombia protest and your overall impression of Colombia's politics as it relates to public opinion. Yeah. So, what's going on in Colombia right now? If you're not aware, really in all Latin America, but most recently, as far as unrest in Colombia, there's been a lot of protests. Whenever I pop on Instagram, I see friends that I still have that live in Colombia, posting about it, and it's been rough. There's a lot of public unrest right now in Colombia. People are very unhappy. They're very unhappy with some of the peace treaty that went down in 2016 with Las FARC. Recently, Las FARC, a rebel group that has terrorized Colombia for years, and have been responsible for drug trafficking and kidnapping and just terrorism within the country. So apparently people are very unhappy with some of the things that have gone down since the peace treaty, not being honored, as far as just overall corruption, the state just taking money, stealing money, as well as people are very unhappy with the minimum wage. Just overall, I think people are just unhappy, and seeing what's happening else in Latin America, in Chile and other countries as well, right? Bolivia, with people kind of making some noise and making their voice heard. That's why I wanted to wear the Colombian jersey today. This is actually the 1992 jersey. I'm very proud with everything that everyone's doing, and in keeping a very peaceful manner to make themselves heard, and there's a really good campaign of hitting la cacerola, which is basically just people with spoons just going out in the streets and hitting their old pans and making some noise. And yeah, I think it's important. I think the issues in Colombia haven't, it's not something new. They've been going on for years, longer than I've existed on this planet. But I think there's a lot of conscious effort now, seeing like this other Latin American countries like step up and make noise and realize that the public shouldn't just settle with whatever their governments give them. And yeah, so all I want to say is that I'm very proud, and I hope they stay peaceful, because I know there's been some deaths. Not many, I believe like 3 or 4. But nonetheless, the military forces and police are now like throwing tear gases and whatnot. And most of the videos that I've seen circle around have actually mostly like cops getting stoned, and they're the ones that are kind of getting the short end of the stick. But still, yeah, I just wish the country to come together, keep making their voice heard, and yeah, I hope things start changing. These are things that cause change for the future. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that. But thanks for asking. And yeah, that's a story that I've been following, obviously. All right. So we're an hour deep, and I'm gonna call it quits here. I would like to keep these an hour. I think 60 minutes is a good amount of time. Obviously, depending on the amount of questions, sometimes I'm gonna go a little longer, like I'm doing now, just 3 minutes past the hour mark. But nonetheless, they're going to be around, these live Q&As are going to be around this time. So they're going to be a weekly occurrence every Sunday at 1 p.m., maybe 2 p.m., depending on my scheduling. But they are going to happen in the afternoon, early afternoon, every Sunday. And I will keep you posted the day before on the time that I will be going live. So in the meantime, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you submitting questions on Twitter and on the chat, preferably Twitter, though, so they can queue up and I can have something to talk about right away and we can get into things immediately. But I appreciate all of your support. If you're watching this, please give this video a thumbs up, tell your friends about it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications for this channel so you know when I'll be going live. And that's it. That's all I got to say. So thank you guys for tuning in. And I hope you enjoy and have a wonderful Domingo, wonderful Sunday. Later, guys. Thank you.